Hey humans, welcome to Read to Me, Matt Dunn. I'm Matt Dunn, and I'm going to read to you. We're reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. We are in chapter 7, chapter 8. We are on chapter 8, part 2. Part 2. Our house was the house of mourning. To mourn. My father's health was deeply shaken by the horror of recent events. Elizabeth was sad and desponding. She no longer took delight in her ordinary occupations. All pleasure seemed to be her sacrilege towards the dead, and eternal woe and tears she then thought was the just tribute she should pay to innocence so blasted and destroyed. She was no longer that happy creature who in earlier youth wandered with me on the banks of the lake and talked with ecstasy of our future prospects. She had become grave and often conversed on the inconsistency of fortune and the instability of human life. God, this book is so good. I don't know if you're getting out of this what I'm getting out of this, but they're just being human. They're getting the hardships of life, and they think they're frivolously frolicking in fucking flowers, but when in actuality those flowers are dead and you're treading on dead bodies, and you have to fucking keep frolicking just to make it through and smile. This is life. When I reflect, my dear cousin, she said, on the miserable death of Justine Moritz, I no longer see the world and its works as they before appeared to me. Before I looked upon the accounts of vice and injustice, and I read in books or heard from others as tales of ancient days or imaginary evils. At least they were remote and more familiar more familiar to reason than to imagination. Blah fucking blah, blah. But now misery has come home, and men appear to me as monsters, thirsting for each other's blood. Yet I am certainly unjust. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. This book is the same for now. Same thing. Everyone's a fucking monster. Everybody believed that poor girl to be guilty. And if she could have committed the crime for which she suffered, assuredly she would have been the most depraved of human creatures. For the sake of a few jewels, to have murdered the son of her benefactor and friend, a child whom she had nursed from its birth, and appeared to love as if it has been her own. I could not consent to the death of any human being, but certainly I should have thought such a creature unfit to remain in the society of men. Yet she was innocent. You are of the same opinion, and that confirms me. Alas, Victor, when falsehood can look so true, when falsehood can look so like the truth, who can assure themselves of certain happiness? I feel as if I were walking on the edge of a precipice toward which thousands are crowding and endeavoring to plunge me into the abyss. William and Justine were assassinated, and the murderer escaped. He walks about the world free and perhaps respected. But even if I were condemned to suffer on the scaffold for the same crimes, I would not change places with such a wretch. I listened to this discourse with the extremest agony. I, not in deed, but in effect. I, not in deed, but in effect. was the true murderer. Right. So he's saying he was the true murderer through vicariously. Elizabeth read my anguish in my countenance, and kindly taking my hand said, "My dearest cousin, you must calm yourself." That's what she said. "These events have affected me, God knows how deeply, but I am not so wretched as you are. There is an expression of despair and sometimes of revenge in your countenance, that makes me tremble. Just the word alone makes me tremble. It's like a new word, and we've used it at least once every page, because everyone has countenance. That makes me tremble. Be calm, my dear Victor. I would sacrifice my life to your peace. We surely shall be happy. Quiet in our native country and not mingling in the world, what can disturb our tranquility." She shed tears as she said this, distrusting the very solace that she gave, but at the same time she smiled, that she might chase away the fiend that lurked in my heart. My father, who saw in the unhappiness that was painted in my face only an exaggeration of that sorrow which I might naturally feel, thought an amusement suited to my taste. My father, who blah blah blah, unhappy, blah blah blah, thought an amusement suited to my taste would be the best means of restoring to my wonted serenity. It was from this cause that he had removed to the country, and induced by the same motive, he now proposed that we shall all make an excursion to the valley of the Chamonics. C-H-A-M Onyx. Chamonics. I had been there before, but Elizabeth and Ernest never had. And neither had fucking little William. Oh no! Little William, he never go. And both had often expressed an earnest desire to see the scenery of the place, which had been described to them as wonderful and sublime. Accordingly, we departed from Geneva on this tour about the middle of the month of August, nearly 2 months after the death of Justine. The weather was uncommonly fine, and if mine had been a sorrow to be chased away by any fleeting circumstances, this excursion would certainly have the effect intended by my father. As it was, I was somewhat interested in the scene. It sometimes lulled me, although it could not extinguish my grief. During the first day we traveled in a carriage. In the morning we had seen the mountains at a distance, toward which we gradually advanced. We perceived that the valley through which we wound, and which was formed by the river Arve, capital A-R-V-E, whose course was followed close in upon by degrees. And when the sun had set, we beheld immense mountains and precipices overhanging us on every side, and heard the sound of the river raging among rocks and the dashing of waterfalls around. Ooh, the tingles. The next day we pursued our journey upon mules, and as we ascended still higher, the valley assumed a more magnificent and astonishing character. Ruined castles hanging on the precipice of piny mountains, the impetuous Arve, capital A-R-V-E, and cottages every here and there peeping forth from among the trees, formed the scene of singular beauty. But it was augmented and rendered sublime by the mighty Alps, whose white and shining pyramids and domes towered above all as belonging to another earth, the habitation of another race of beings. We passed the bridge of Pellisser, capital P-E-L-I-S-S-I-E-R, Pisser, where the ravine which the river forms opened before us, and we began to ascend the mountain that overhang it. Soon after we entered the valley of Chamonix. This valley is most wonderful and sublime, but not so beautiful and picturesque as that of Servox. I don't know who named these places. It wasn't me. If I'd have named these places, it would have been like, not Servox. It would have been like, better. Through which we had just passed. Servox was just what we passed. The high and snowy mountains were its immediate boundaries. Immediate, but we saw no more ruined castles and fertile fields. Immense glaciers approached the road, and we heard the rumbling thunder of the falling avalanche, and marked the smoke of its passage. Mont Blanc, the supreme and magnificent Mont Blanc, raised, it's like a mountain, I guess, raised itself from the surrounding Aiguilles, and its tremendous dome overlooked the valley. These words are in italicized, so I wrote Aiguilles and dome. Italicized, you say them like you see them. During this journey, I sometimes joined Elizabeth and exerted myself to the point of fuck you, to point out to her the various beauties of the scene. I often suffered my mule to lag behind and indulged in the misery of reflection. The other times I spurred on the animal before my companions, and I might forget them, the world, and more than all, myself. When at a distance I alighted and threw myself on the grass, weighed down by horror and despair. At 8 in the evening I arrived at Chamonix. My father and Elizabeth were very much fatigued. Ernest, who accompanied us, was delighted and in high spirits. The only circumstance that detracted him from the only circumstance that detracted from his pleasure was the south wind and the rain. It seemed to promise the next day. We retired early to our apartments, but not to sleep. At least, I did not. I remained many hours at the window, watching the pallid lightning that played above Mont Blanc, and listened to the rushing of the Arve, capital A-R-V-E, which ran below my window. Wow. So, what's her name is dead. Silly Willy. Little Willie and Justine, that's right. William and Justine, they're dead. It's like 2 months after. I would say life has to go on. But, you know, Frankenstein, he can't let it happen. He's just like fucking pissed. He just knows. Fuck. Alright, well, if you want me to keep reading, please check out some more of my videos. You can check out the, other playlist or recent videos, or you can subscribe. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Thank you.